the shoulders of the ones who came before me. I am stronger for their courage. I am wiser for their words. I am lifted by their longing for a fair and brighter future. I am grateful for their vision, for their toiling on this earth.
We are standing on the soldiers and shoulders and those things too. The shoulders of the ones who came before us. They are saints, they are humans, they are angels, they are friends.
We can see beyond the struggles and the troubles and the challenge when we know that by our efforts things will be better in the end.
Today, we commemorate the life and ministry of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King was a prophet of racial justice. He called for an end to the Vietnam War and an end to militarization and the militarization of this country. He believed in radical economic changes that could end poverty, and he did not walk alone.
Women lit the way for him. Women stood beside him. These are the women who were denied their full humanity because of both their race and their gender. These are women who were the backbone of the civil rights movement and the backbone of the church.
We stand on their shoulders. Do we know their names? Do we know their stories? Today, we lift up Fannie Lou Hamer, a Mississippi sharecropper whose leadership of voter registration drives led to her being arrested, shot at, and beaten so badly in a Mississippi jail that she suffered permanent kidney damage. Later, she set up organizations to increase business opportunities for people of all color and helped establish the National Women's Political Caucus in 1971.
We lift up Vivian Malone, one of the first 2 African-American students to enroll at the University of Alabama in 1963, and the university's first African-American graduate. She defied Governor George Wallace's infamous stand in the schoolhouse door to block her and James Hood from enrolling. She graduated with a degree in business and moved to Washington, where she became a leader in the Justice Department in civil rights, urban affairs, and environmental protection. In 1996, former Governor Wallace presented her with the Laureline B. Wallace Award for Courage, named for his late wife. He told her that he had made a mistake 33 years earlier and that he admired her.
We lift up Septima Posset Clark, known as the Queen Mother of the movement. Her mother was a laundress and her father had been enslaved. In the South, literacy was a requirement to register to vote, and this was used to disenfranchise black citizens. Ms. Clark became an educator and established citizenship schools throughout the Deep South, teaching literacy and citizenship rights to black adults.
I stand on the shoulders of Billie Holiday, who in many ways represents all of the facets of a human experience. At times, she was the heroine and the villain, named the lady and then called a tramp. She was innocent and she was guilty. She came on the scene like a fresh gardenia, fragrant, young, and new, and then timeless, and then seasoned, and then too quickly wilted. At times secret and elusive, but always under the microscope of judgment and criticisms, and then accolades and adornment. Invisible and under the watchful eye of adoring fans who could never know how truly lonely she was at times. To feel so devalued while being and creating invaluable music and legacy. She was a soldier of melodies that changed hearts and minds and cried in chords, "Give us free," while singing of a tree and its strange fruits. She, Billie, is part of my roots. She sang for my Mississippi granny, aunties, and mothers, sisters, friends. She had no children, but was definitely one of my mothers of jazz.
We lift up Ella Baker, leader in the NAACP, in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Ms. Baker believed strongly in the power of each individual and warned against a movement centered in a few powerful leaders. She argued that people under the heel, the most oppressed members of any community, had to be the ones to decide what action they were going to take to get out from under their oppression.
We lift up Amelia Boynton Robinson, who was the first African-American woman to run for a seat in Congress from Alabama in 1964. She and Dr. King met in her home to plan the 1965 march from Selma to Montgomery. It was during this march, known as the Bloody Sunday, that she and fellow activists were beaten unconscious by state troopers. This march helped prompt President Lyndon B. Johnson to sign the Voting Rights Act on August 6, 1965. Amelia Boynton Robinson attended this landmark event as the guest of honor. She died in 2015 at the age of 104.
We lift up Diane Nash, who was a young college student in Nashville, Tennessee, when she began to organize nonviolent sit-ins that resulted in Nashville becoming the first southern city to desegregate lunch counters in 1960. Diane Nash was on the front lines of the Freedom Rides and was a leader for voter registration and school desegregation. She was jailed when she was pregnant with her first child for teaching nonviolent tactics to children.
We lift up Sister Thea Bowman, who was born in 1937 and died in 1990. She was the granddaughter of slaves and was educated by nuns in Mississippi growing up. She converted to Catholicism and joined the Franciscan Sisters of Perpetual Adoration and was the only African-American member of her community. She earned her doctorate and was a college professor of English and linguistics. She enlightened our bishops and our church on what it meant to be Black and Catholic. She was a powerful evangelist who said, "We unite ourselves with Christ's redemptive work when we reconcile, when we make peace, when we share the good news that God is in our lives, when we reflect to our brothers and sisters God's healing, God's forgiveness, God's unconditional love." This past fall, the U.S. bishops endorsed the sainthood cause of Sister Thea Bowman.
I lift up my mother, Patricia Inez Agnes Teresa Wilkins Rambo, the oldest of three sisters born in a working-class family in Cincinnati, Ohio, on December 13th, 1937. Her parents, Thomas and Lillian, migrated to Cincinnati from the Pennsylvania hills of Appalachia and the red clay rural south of Mississippi Delta. Together, they raised their three daughters under strict Catholic teachings in the Laurel Homes projects of Cincinnati, Ohio. As my grandfather Booster would put it, my mother was a tall drink of water with legs like greased cinnamon sticks. She could run like the wind, draw anything that wasn't moving, and had a fiery determination that the word no could never quench. It was this unflinching fearlessness that propelled her through art school, graduate school, and eventually into the field of interior design and modeling. At 60, where some moms take up crocheting, my mother took up welding, making her own metal furniture, room dividers, and public art sculptures. At 65, she saw Oprah and Gail training for a marathon. That next year, she created a group called 50 by 50 for women of color over 50 who could, would, and did run marathons. By her 75th birthday, she had completed one marathon a year and was the eldest participant in the Bay Area Marathon. On November 26, 2016, my mother, who my friends affectionately call T-Mama, was coming home from church, and a distracted driver blew a red light while texting. His car T-boned T-Mama, leaving her paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair. Her speech now impaired, She knits together phrases, excavating words like precious artifacts. She exists as a shining example of grace, gratitude, and greatness. My mother, Patricia Inez Agnes Teresa Wilkins Rambo, is all that I could ever hope to be and is everything that has meaning to me. Team Mama, you have inspired me, motivated me, guided me toward my greater yet to be, and it is your shoulders on which I stand.
I am standing on the shoulders of the ones who came before me. I am stronger for their courage. I am wiser for their words. I'm lifted by their longing for a fairer and brighter future. I'm grateful for their vision, for their toiling on this earth.
We are standing on the shoulders of ones who came before us. They are saints. They are humans. They are angels. They are friends.
We can see beyond the struggles and the troubles and the challenge when we know that by our efforts things will be better in the end.
Yes, we shall